Hey folks, how we doing today? Hope everybody's doing well. Had a nice weekend. Was able to maybe relax a little bit, um, get a better perspective. I'm not really sure. I know this is weird times, and sometimes I don't quite know what to say. Trying to be encouraging, but understanding that each one of us is in a different situation. Some of us are happy to have this quiet downtime. Some of us are stressing out because of what's going on. Some of us are ready to strangle kids that are home or spouses that are home. It can just be all over the spectrum of what we're feeling right now, what's going on. And I think I've said before that some moments I'm calm, some moments I'm good, then a few minutes later I'm stressing out. And it's just sort of been, honestly, a kind of a roller coaster of a ride the last few weeks, with not quite knowing what to do, not quite knowing how big or bad is all of this, and just trying to hang on to perspective has been a little bit of a challenge. And I'm sure it has been for a lot of you guys. And just want you to know that I'm in there with you, praying for you, praying for all of us, leaders, doctors, first responders, teachers, grocery workers, everybody that's doing extra. And it's, in one hand, it's a scary time. On the other hand, it's a unique time. So it's just sort of processing all of that. And I guess for my wife and I, the realness of some of this didn't really hit home until Saturday for us. And it's kind of humorous, but for the last, I don't know, year or two, we have had a regular sort of weekend date night scheduled where we go to the local Mexican place. And for the longest time, it was on Fridays, so it was Fajita Friday. And then we had a schedule shift that made it have to happen on Saturday. So the easy thing would be, hey, rename this thing Salsa Saturday. But no, we went with Sopapilla Saturday, and I'm not really sure why we chose that, but that's what we came up with. So we've gone from Fajita Friday to Sopapilla Saturday. And so it's Saturday afternoon, and we're starting to talk about, getting our weekly Mexican fix. And granted, we know that it's only takeout now. It's not the full-on American Mexican restaurant experience where we've come to know our waiters and waitresses and hostess and the manager and people that sit around us. Now, granted, I don't know all of their names. I hardly know any of their names, but we have, nicknames for everybody, like I always do. And we feel like we're kind of amongst friends in a way, maybe acquaintances. But last week, we called, placed our to-go order, went up and saw Jorge, the manager, chatted with him for a few minutes, and it wasn't quite the same Sopapilla Saturday, but it was still Sopapilla Saturday, right? Well, so this week, we get ready to place our order, and I make the phone call, no answer. Well, my wife, with a look of desperation on her face, says, well, call back. Maybe they're just really busy. So I do what any good husband would do and do exactly what their wife says. So that's what I do. We're going to have to pause right there. Got to get a cough drop. Be right back. Okay, so where were we? Sopapilla Saturday. And it's kind of becoming a crisis because I've called twice now. No answer. Where's Jorge? What's going on? So then my wife and I decide, hey, why don't we just hop in the car and we'll go see what's available, see who's open. We really have been trying to, when we do have a meal discussion and we're going to get something, we try to get from local establishments, trying to help, the businesses that are close to us. And so we figured, hey, we'll go out and we'll find something that's close by. So we do one drive-by of our Mexican place just to confirm that it is truly not open right now. And I guess I had hopes that we would drive by and the parking lot would be full, and they would have been so busy that they just weren't able to answer the phone, but no luck on that. So we drive by a little bit disappointed, and then we start sort of factoring in, hey, here's our options. So we take a right, we go down the street, we drive by the local barbecue joint that's still open, and we're like, hey, okay, now there's a good option right there. But as we've discussed further, we do realize it's Sopapilla Saturday and not Barbecue Saturday. So we're trying to process through, and you can kind of do a big loop around our little town here that we live in and kind of cover all the local bases. So we do that, and we sort of process through, hey, we could do this, we could do that. And then as we're sort of getting to where we're going to turn back around and maybe have to go with Barbecue Saturday, which just throws everything out of kilter. But we remember that just over to the left a little bit is another Mexican establishment, and we see the flickering open sign there. So we think, hey, it's not the regular Sopapilla Saturday, but it's going to be a Sopapilla Saturday nonetheless. So we drive over there, and sure enough, they're set up to do kind of a to-go drive-through contraption that they've got set up. So we place our order, we pull over to the side, and we wait, and we take our food home, and we basically, we have the fajita nachos, we have the cheese dip, we've got the extra jalapenos, we've got the beans, the rice, all that kind of stuff, the guacamole. So we basically pulled together a Sopapilla Saturday. But it was messy, and it was difficult to decide what's going to replace our local thing. So just to share a little lighthearted humor maybe that, we're all going through it, and we're all trying to make do. And everybody seems to be doing a pretty awesome job of adapting, of making the best out of what is happening right now. The local Mexican place is set up a drive-through now so they can keep employees going. We had to kind of do a plan B, but we still were able to kind of maintain some sense of normalcy in our life and some of the quirky little silly traditions that we have in our family. So I just kind of encourage us to keep pressing on. But at the same time, I do know the reality of all of what's happening right now brings some concerns, and maybe even more than concerns, maybe deep worries, and just a sense of wondering, like, what in the world is going on? And that kind of has led me to a couple of things over the week to think about. And last video we talked about how people in the world will know followers of Christ because of the love that we show. And I touched on the idea that Jesus had sort of established with his disciples and those around him that one of the key things in our lives, aside from loving and focusing and worshiping God, is to love our neighbor. And what does that mean? What does that look like? What shape and form and method does that take on? And I guess it's a little bit different for all of us because we're all in different situations. Our neighbors are going to be different. Obviously, we don't all live in the same house, but theoretically, our neighbors are going to be different because our coworkers, our friends, our family, those around us, extended circles, they're all going to be different. Some of them are interwoven, but for the most part, they're all going to be a lot different. So our neighbor, in a sense, is going to look different. But so how do we figure out what are we supposed to do? Because probably right now, one of the hardest things to do is quit worrying about ourselves and turn that into some sort of action. So it's like, what should we do might be the question right now. What should we be doing? And, aside from all the sort of frivolous worries about where are we going to get Mexican food, do we have enough toilet paper, or am I going to kill my kids because they're still here and they're not supposed to be here? Am I going to strangle my spouse, my wife, my husband because they're not supposed to be here right now and I'm trying to work. All of these things are a little bit silly, but they're still pieces in the puzzle. But so what really should we be doing? And I think initially it's going to be an easy thing for us to sort of think that maybe we should be praying. And perhaps most of us are praying. But then the question becomes, what do we pray about right now? What do I pray about today? What do I pray about tomorrow? What do I say? I don't know how to pray. What's it all about? I've always just kind of closed my eyes at church and let the preacher do it, or the guy that leads the music, he did it, or that gal that sang the solo, she did it, or maybe my dad did it, or my mom, or my spouse. So it's one of those, like, what do I do now? Like when it's quiet and it's just me and it's just my thoughts and it's just what's going on internally, what do I do? And so the idea might be that what we should be doing is we should be praying, and we should be maybe not so worried about how do we do it, what do we say, I don't know what to say. What if when you're quiet and you're laying in bed at night, or you're reflecting during the day because your schedule's so out of sorts right now, and all of a sudden you have free time that you didn't used to have, what if you began to pray about those things that pop into your mind? Those things that maybe keep you up at night. Those things that when you're in the shower and you're kind of just there all by yourself, the things that creep in. Those things that maybe cause worry, maybe cause stress, maybe cause anxiety, maybe cause fear. What if we began to pray for those? Just start there. What if your worry list became your prayer list? What if those things that are causing you to stress out and causing you to lose your temper sometimes, or causing you to have a pain in your stomach, what if those things became what we prayed about? What if what we were worrying about became what we're praying about? What would happen? So what if we started there? And what we should be doing is praying. And what we should be praying about is those things that are worrying us, those things that are weighing on us, those things that are causing stress for us. Those should be the things we're praying for. So what if we started right there? Simple. God, I'm worried about this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pray about it, God, and I'm going to just continue to talk to you about this and see what happens. So God, I'm worried about my job. I'm worried about my son. I'm worried about my parents. I'm worried about, you fill in the blank. And God, I am trusting you to do something God-like with my worry, with my concern, with my fear. And let's see what happens. Because I'm willing to bet, based on what I've read in the Bible, based on the examples Jesus has given, and more importantly than any of that, is what I have experienced personally. It's easy to talk about something in a book. It's easy to talk about something a guy standing on a stage talked about. But it's easy to believe and lean on something that's actually happened to me, something that's actually happened inside of me, something that's actually happened to you. So that's where the belief comes. That's where the faith comes. So we begin to pray. That's what we should do. We begin to pray. We begin to pray about the things that are stressing us out. Then we trust God to do godly stuff. And in that simple act of saying, hey God, I don't have it figured out, I'm stressing, I'm worried, help. Those worries quickly, over time, will begin to fade. They don't go away necessarily, but the perspective changes. We begin to remember that in that storm, God is with us. In that storm, in that time of doubt and fear, Jesus is in the boat with us, and he speaks to the storm, and he calms the water, and he calms our soul. So in that time of what we should be doing, we should be praying, talking to God, not big fancy things. No, just simple from your heart to God, the lover of your soul. God, I'm worried about this. Please help me. So I wonder what happens then if we stop worrying, if we begin to pray more and worry less. What would happen then? So we're going to start praying. We're going to worry less. And then what's that going to lead to? Perhaps our prayers begin to change over time. And we don't always pray for what's worrying us, because our perspective is beginning to change and we're beginning to sense that God is in control. And so some of our worries begin to lessen. They don't go away. No, we still have things that we're concerned about, things that are going to weigh on our minds a little bit, decisions. Those don't go away, but the avenue of the way we handle them, it changes. We stop worrying, we stop trying to fix it ourselves, and we begin to trust Jesus. And in that change, and in that sort of paradigm shift, and our eyes go from down here to up there, things change. We begin to go from worrying to dreaming. We begin to go from stressing out to having a vision. We go from we stop all of those petty things that we can't fix, and we begin to allow God to speak to us. We begin to allow these desires and these things to blossom inside of us, and things begin to change. All of a sudden, we begin to think outside of our me box and begin to look outside. We now begin to hear God calling us and sensing us, and we raise our hand kind of like Isaiah did, and we say, God, send me. That's when things begin to change. That's when our worry and all of that knot of angst and anxiety begins to lessen, and we begin to move. And we begin to move because we know we're with God, and God is with us, and Jesus lives within us, and we're filled with His Spirit. And we are in that boat with Him, and He said, hey, let's go to the other side. Even when the storms rage, we are still pressing on because He is with us. So we begin to change our view of the world. Our world goes from a me-focused world to a Jesus-focused world. Our vision changes from a cloudy, all about me, all about what can I get out of things, to, hey, how does Jesus see things? What would He be doing right now? And then that's where our neighbor comes back in. So what if we prayed more, worried less, and then we would begin to help more? Then we would begin to reach out more. Then we would begin to think, okay, I have these talents, these dreams, these ideas, and they are going to help my neighbor, somebody on the other side of the state, somebody on the other side of the world. I don't know. But God has put these talents, these desires, these dreams, these visions, this skill set, this package of experience over a lifetime together so I can do something great for Him, so I can help my neighbor. And if we look in Luke chapter 10, when Jesus is talking about to this lawyer guy about what we should be doing, and he says, the lawyer says, well, we should love our neighbor. Jesus says, yes, you do that. You love God and your neighbor, and you will live. Then the lawyer comes back with, hey, who's my neighbor? And we've talked some about that. Who is our neighbor? Maybe it's not the guy that lives in the condo right next to you, or the guy in the dorm room right above you, or your coworker in the cube right next to you. Maybe that's not it exactly. Yeah, they're right next to you, but maybe right now it's somebody else or something else. I don't know. Maybe it's something, social media wise. I don't know. But God knows. And as we pray and we seek and we knock and we press in towards God and we let our worries go and we begin to dream godly dreams that are focused not on us but on others, things change. And so in that story in Luke, Jesus tells the story of the Good Samaritan. And for folks that have gone to church and Sunday school as kids, you probably know that story. It's where the guy gets beat up. He's left on the side of the road. He's been basically mugged and beaten and just left. They stole all his stuff. They beat him up. Not a good scene. And then two people walk past him at different times and don't do anything. And they're the folks in this culture, when Jesus is talking, they're the ones that should have helped. They're the guy that's like the preacher dude that's like paid to be a Christian. And then there's like another hoity-toity guy that walks by that should know better and should have the means to help. But then there's the Samaritan. And the Samaritan back in these times is like the outcast guy. I mean, that's the one that racially's not right, probably looked down upon by just everybody around. So a misfit. He's like us. He's not perfect, and neither are we. We can always say, hey, here's the reason we can't do something. I'm not smart enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm the wrong color. I don't have enough money. I grew up over in this area. I didn't go to that school. I don't know those people. I don't have that job. And we can sit here feeling sorry for ourselves and not do anything. Or when an opportunity presents, we can use what we've got to do what we can. And that's what this guy did. He didn't worry about the fact the guy that had gotten beat up was not racially the same as him. He didn't think about, hey, that guy's beat up over there and he probably is smarter than I am, or knows more people than I do, or has more money than I do. And no, he saw a need. He saw a neighbor in need, physically hurting and needing help. And he went and he helped. He didn't ask a bunch of questions. He just said, hey, buddy, you look like you need some help. And guess what? I'm willing to help. He cleans the guy up. He bandages his wounds. He takes him to the local bed and breakfast, place over there. He buys him a room for a few days. He gives some money for the guy that ran the place to take care of him. He says, hey, when I come back through town, I'm going to check on my friend here, and then any expenses, I'm going to pay for it. So he took it all. It's pretty amazing if you stop and think what that would look like today. You, me, seeing a need and moving to action. That's what we should be doing. Now, there's an interesting thing in this story that I'd never really thought about until reading back over this. And it's what Jesus says to this lawyer. When the lawyer asks the question and then the answers come with love God, love your neighbor. And then Jesus' response is, you do these things and you will live. Never really dawned on me that, and you will live. So I got out the Googler, got online, did a little looking at the context there to figure out what was really being said there. And Jesus is saying if we do that, not only do we live, but we come alive. That's a big difference to me. Yeah, we're all going to live, whether we help our neighbor or not. But what if we all came alive because we helped our neighbor? What if that space in our heart that we can't seem to fill, no matter what we think about or read or listen to or try to do, isn't doing it because we aren't loving our neighbor like we should be? What if in the mere act of helping someone in need around us, God began to speak to us? God began to fill that void within us even more because we're full of joy from the idea of giving. What if we came alive in Christ because not only are we followers of Him, but we are acting out in our world the way He would? What if we quit worrying? We talk to God about everything. Simple, not big, grand prayers, but just, God, help me today to see you more clearly. Jesus, help me see this world more like you today. God, give me an opportunity today to help someone. How would that change our dynamic? Look, guys, we're not here to just check stuff off a to-do list. I know a lot of folks are big list makers, nothing wrong with it. I do the same thing. And I get a lot of sort of accomplishment when I can mark stuff off. And then at the end of the day, I can see all the things that I've done. I get that. But that's not all we're here for. Jesus is calling us to come alive, to follow Him, to get in the boat, to go to the other side, to love our neighbor the same way we love ourselves. In Acts, Paul even goes so far as to say that it's better to give than be given to. It's better for us to give things than to get. That's kind of hard to imagine sometimes, because I love birthdays and Christmas and stuff when people are giving me things, especially when they give me stuff I want. It's awesome. I get it. But what if that joy and that coming alive came from us giving, us loving our neighbor? That's what we should be doing. That's what we're called to be doing. And now is an awesome time for us to reach out in unique ways to our neighbor, to a friend, to someone that needs help. Whether it's a nice text message, helping somebody, we talked about doing yard work, reaching out to our neighbor, checking on, parents, whatever it is. But what if we begin to think less about us and more about our neighbor? And we truly begin to come alive. I think that would be awesome. Less worry, more amazing dreams and goals and plans, because God is driving them, and the impact we would have on the world would be amazing. They would know us by our love. We love our neighbor, we love God, and we come alive. That's an amazing opportunity that each one of us have today. I'm praying for you guys, folks. Whatever you need, reach out to me, comment below, email, text, whatever. I'm happy to pray for you. I'm happy to help you connect. I'm happy to help think through ideas with any of you guys. But folks, let's begin to pray. Let's begin to worry less. Let's begin to view the world as Jesus does. And let's love our neighbor. And let's come alive. Come alive because we are followers of Christ, pursuers of what He is about, the kingdom of God.